people would take notice, because at the end of the day, and this is what I was thinking about the other day, sorry, Simon, because he told me not to talk about this gentleman, but I actually have to question who makes the best politicians, because the thing is, if politicians is a job, let's hypothetically, if politicians is a job, and they rely for that as their future income, they're going to want to stay in that job. So basically, they'll be responsive to whatever they believe is going to keep them in office. Whereas you've got someone like Donald Trump, who did say in his book Art of the Deal that actually, if you're going to go into a negotiation where you can't walk away, you've already put yourself in a vulnerable position, because he doesn't really need to work, does he? He can go and do whatever he wants after that. But if people are relying on these positions, they're always going to actually respond to what's in their self-interest rather than what's best for the country. So they're never going to make the logical decision, and always based on the fear of actually not being elected again.
Well, you can almost align it with reality TV.
Absolutely.
People will do ridiculous things to get attention, so they don't get voted out or in or whatever. I'm not a watcher, but it's fundamentally the same thing.
Exactly.
Well, actually, watching the House of Commons on a Wednesday is reality TV, isn't it?
Exactly the same. Brilliantly put. It's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, well done.
It's live TV constantly. And you're voted out by the public. Yeah.
And because I remember Margaret Thatcher, and she wasn't really ever concerned about making a popular decision as opposed to actually wanting to make the right decision. And I think Ronald Reagan was the same. I remember there was the air traffic controllers over there at one time, all went on strike, and I think they all lost their jobs at the end of the day, and it's never happened again. So sometimes, even though there's going to be a little bit of pain at the end of it, the long-term results are going to be far better. So anyway, how long do we have left, Theo?
So when you're asking, are we getting weaker? The answer is
yes.
Humans, no, not at all. It's a fault of leadership. We remain the same, but our sense of identity is getting weaker.
Hold on a second, sorry. We never had to have a safe space beforehand. In fact, the only safe space we had was actually stuck in the corner of the classroom if we did something wrong. That was our safe space, and it was a humiliating space.
Well, that's right.
But it made us stronger. Do you remember those?
I do, but I think you're talking about safe space. Don't forget, it's a little bit like we didn't have mobile phones, so we weren't in constant contact, or any people can get hold of you at any moment in time. So we had our safe space. It was just life. Whereas now anyone can reach out to you at any moment in time. Actually,
that is a good point. I hadn't considered that. Thank you for thank you for that one. Actually,
yeah. So in terms of getting weaker, no, humans are always the same. Humans are incredibly manipulable. They're malleable, and what we're seeing is signs of weak leadership, and leading to a lack of sense of identity and too much choice, and we're drones of little dopamine hits. So we've got less and less a sense of control over our lives. So we're getting more and more unhappy, and then what happens is common sense eventually kicks in. So when the identities become too ludicrous and ridiculous, and you end up with places like John Lewis actually not stocking blue and pink clothes anymore because of sexism, then you get people swinging to the right, and then you get the swings always become too extreme. So then the far right will eventually become ridiculous, and then it swings the other way. And again, what this is showing that humans need proper leadership, and democracy, unfortunately, is not the way.
Yeah, I know. Theo does believe in the dictator, which I don't.
I believe in a
benevolent dictator.
A benevolent dictator, which is very, very hard to get. But again, the proof of the millennia and evolution of millennia is religion. Religion started at about the same time that modern civilization started, and it is responsible for mankind succeeding. But mankind was around for millions of years, and it's only over the last 10 to 20,000 years that mankind has made any headway in terms of evolution out of all that time. And it's the key thing that separates man from monkeys is the ability of men to cooperate in large groups, which monkeys can't do. So, for instance, if you get marooned on a desert island and you have one monkey and one man, who's going to be better at surviving? I'll tell you, the monkey. But if you put 100 men and 100 monkeys, the 100 men are going to be more successful because they have the ability to cooperate. And religion is a transcontinental tribe and makes people cooperate.
Okay, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to actually bring Nikki in on this. In terms of men being more cooperative in larger groups, is that what you said? I just want to clarify that. What was it you said?
Effectively led.
If they're effectively led. Well, no, actually, I probably disagree. We are... Because the thing is, there is so much disharmony all over the world because we are, in terms of what socialism is looking to create, this large community type thing which has never worked. I mean, it's never worked in 100 years. I mean, 100 million people have died through socialism, through starvation. And look at what's happening to Venezuela right now. Large groups. It's not necessarily about leadership. You can't control that in large groups. The reason why it always worked before, many years ago, wasn't it the fact that they were in small tribes? You look at a rugby club, it's a small tribe of people who get along. A football team is a small tribe of people that get along. I've got to say, misdirected all the same, but there's a small group of people.
The only tried and tested method that has succeeded is different forms of religion. Everything else fails.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, all religion does is provide a moral aspect, but the thing is, we've probably already got that in us, but that moral position will disappear if we are put in our most desperate position because we will resort to our natural instincts of survival. What do you think, Nick?
Sure. No, I think it's like everything. The analogy that sprung to mind was sort of economies of scale in terms of when you talk about the reason that we as a species evolved above all others was the fact that we could cooperate and get into groups. But at what point in time does that group become so exponentially large that it loses itself? And then the other more simplistic analogy, because it suits my little brain, is that you're talking about benevolent dictators, and the analogy I can think of there is almost like a football manager, which is like the benevolent dictator would be someone like Sir Alex Ferguson, where because he is in that position and he's in a strong position, he's able to play the long game. So he doesn't take the short-term risks that have the potential to derail a football club. Whereas now you've got managers coming in, going out, knowing, just as politicians do, have a very, very short time to make that impact, and they'll take a big risk. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. So I think that's
it's high risk, high return, isn't it? And that basis,
and it's short-termism.
Yeah, because look, if you only get elected every 4 years, I mean, you can't. It's very hard to play the long game because you need to make some traction as quickly as possible because we need the instant results to actually, as evidence that we can actually deliver.
And yet the Far East actually do that, don't they? The Japanese, the Chinese, that's exactly what they do. They do play the long game.
Yeah, but
maybe the Japanese better than the Chinese.
I don't know enough about Japan. I mean, China, that is a communist dictatorship, but it's run in a very capitalist manner as well, though. Yet we've talked about the impact that could actually potentially have on them as well, because they haven't been playing fair. They haven't been playing nice, have they?
Mm-hmm. Well, don't forget they've been misled by the Americans, because when you say, I guess you're referring to the fraud they've done in terms of the investment opportunities in China, but that was Americans finding a loophole in American law by getting obscure Chinese companies to amalgamate with American companies traded on the stock exchange, which happen to be dormant, and that's a back door to investing in Chinese companies.
And you know what? And that is the flaw in capitalism. Don't get me wrong, particularly with the Americans. As soon as money starts coming in, greed takes over. I don't know whether enough is ever enough. I'm not sure that is the case. But it all comes down to, because you talk about these big companies and look at how they treat their staff. You know what? Many of these, I used this analogy once with someone, or someone gave it to me, and I used it. Mother Teresa, for example, was I don't think anyone could disagree. She was a kind, warm, caring woman who did a lot of good for poor people. But then again, if you take a company like Apple, which is also, in theory, you could say, has done a lot for people so they can actually have jobs, so they can actually live a lifestyle, whereas one is a hardcore capitalist who probably earns more money than some countries, and Mother Teresa, who on the other hand is just about the nurturing, caring, and it's almost just maintaining that, but it doesn't. She can't really provide any growth. And I don't want to knock Mother Teresa here, by the way. Otherwise, I don't want to sound too callous. But do you understand does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, and I think she's an acceptable and identifiable face on what a caring person should be, can do, how they can make an impact within their community. But yeah, on a macro level, a company with the power and recently declared financial might of Apple can have significantly greater impact.
First company to reach $1 trillion valuation.
Yeah.
Now, remember what we said before. Companies have the same legal rights as human beings, but here's the rub: they are psychopaths, and psychopaths cause harm because they don't care about human beings. They care only about themselves, only about their profit bottom line. So Apple, for instance, they we can all talk about from our personal experience, but what happens with Apple is that they're essentially very badly designed computers, very badly designed phones. Why? Because they have...
Well, they're made in China? Oh, sorry. Go on.
They have inbuilt obsolescence. So once you reach a certain number of software updates, both the computer and the phone will stop working. So what you paid your good money for, after 1 to 2 years, will slow down and become unusable. Not even Microsoft do that. Just let's get that clear in our minds. People's phones don't work. I had to go with my laptop 6 times to the Apple store to get it fixed until they admitted they can't fix it. And then I went to a private company, and they told me that their software simply can't be coped with by computers 2 years old or more.
But hold on a second. But people know that they have a choice. Well, go back to Microsoft if you don't like it. There's a choice, so you've got to wear up the press.
People don't know that. They actually have to find out about it, and quite frankly, it's shocking. And I left an appropriate review about the Apple Store, and it's had hundreds, in fact thousands of views and likes.
How popular you are, Theo. Anyway,
it's how unpopular they are.
Huh? Go on. So, but it's actually...
So you say it gives jobs, but actually all it starts doing...
Well, doesn't it? So what happens if they don't give jobs?
Given power, when you say jobs, I wonder genuinely what it actually does to you. How many Apple employees are actually on minimum wage?
Well, do you know something? It's better than that, than being on welfare, and I don't think that many are on minimum wage, to be honest. But the thing is, you know, they do have, these companies do have power, they do have strength. I mean, you look at what's happening in America right now, particularly California. You got all these companies. They're taxing even further these big wealthy companies. The middle class has virtually disappeared. They've got a huge financial deficit of like $1.2 trillion that they can't cover. And all of a sudden, these companies are saying, do you know what? I don't want to pay these high taxes, deal with these crappy regulations, so they're moving to Texas. Same as happened in Seattle. They wanted to increase the taxes, and Amazon is saying, okay, we'll leave Seattle. And they had to reverse that to a point, because the thing is, it provided jobs for people to be able to live.
Was it Amazon who reduced their yearly tax bill to £4.5 million? I think, was it Amazon?
They probably did.
And none of these companies, by the way, are profitable. Amazon is in loss. How can it justify increased share prices? Tesla.
Because it's the long game. It's the long game.
But that doesn't meet the numbers. Tesla lost $700 million, and their valuation went up 10%.
Okay, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up there before we because our time's running out. Well, I'd like to thank Nick for joining us on this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And we will speak to you next week. And if you've got any comments, please let us know. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.